Yeah, and just to kind of give a little intro into our episode, this one's going to be tackling some heavier themes. So if you have kids around or if you're listening out loud, maybe consider putting headphones in or maybe saving this one for a time when you're willing to be emotionally wrecked because it's going to be a roller coaster.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we want to introduce our guest a little more. Dani, why don't you tell us about yourself and then tell us what you would send to hell?
Okay, yeah. Hi, my name's Dani. I just got married a year ago to literally my best friend, like my saving grace. Like you guys will hear in the story that like me meeting him at the time that I did and like our relationship now is literally just by the grace of God. So just loving married life, currently looking to move into our own home. We're renting right now. So just kind of in that like season of waiting on God for literally everything. We went to our first mission trip, so we're just on fire and ready to go. But I think the thing that I would send to hell is lying. I think that is just like, to me, you know, it's like sin is a sin, right? And like there's no greater, no lesser, but like lying to me is like, that's the top. Like I can't do it when people are lying or like when I know someone's lying or like the lies that I've told and also just like the lies from the enemy, like all of it. It's wrong. It's not right. Go to hell.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah. Dani is an advocate for the truth.
Amen. Yes.
That's what she wants you to know.
Yes.
Oh, yes. That's awesome.
Yeah. Went deep on that one. I love it.
I know, I didn't even mean it. Here we go.
All right. Oh. Well, I also wanted to add, before we jump into your story, I wanted to share a little bit about how you got here and why we're interviewing you, because Kelly and I were supposed to interview someone else this week. And with the people that we bring on, we never want anyone to feel backed into a corner or like they said yes and then they're having second thoughts, but they feel like they have to, you know, we just want everyone to be here because they want to be here. Right. And it's the right timing for them. And so, and we've learned through a couple other interviews that like God just brings the right people at the right time. And so you are one of them, because on Thursday, well, Dani, you and I help out with like a college group for girls. Yeah. And I think it was that day or maybe the day before, Kelly had texted me saying that the interview we were supposed to do this weekend was a no-go. Yeah. And so on one hand, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, what are we going to do? But at the same time, it's like, well, this is great. This is exciting because
fresh start.
As we found out, God brings the right people at the right time, even if it's like 2 minutes before we're about to sit down and press record, like literally. And so when you shared your story, shared your testimony on Thursday, first of all, it was just beautiful and amazing for what it is. But like, I even felt the Holy Spirit be like, hey, just like tapping my shoulder.
Like, here's what you
wants to come on. Yeah. And I was shocked that you said yes, not just like to come on in general, but even like just for this weekend, because I was like, oh, maybe she'd be up for it, but like in 3 months. And so
oh my gosh,
so shout out to you for just being willing to come on. What is this,
honestly,
three
shout out
later?
Right, shout out to the Holy Spirit, like that he prompted you to ask me that, like that. I don't know, I just feel so blessed and honored to be able to be on this platform with you guys and like literally just share the goodness of God, because like that's all that it is.
Yeah, and we're excited to hear it. I'm excited to hear it again.
Yeah,
and even in more detail. And I know I'm excited to hear it for the first time.
Yeah.
So Dani, take it away. You can start wherever you want to start.
Okay. All right. I guess I'll start with like how I grew up. So I grew up in a Christian household, like my mom and dad. We went to church every Sunday, did our, I don't know if you guys remember like Awana from back in the day, Wednesdays. Yes, like we did that every Sunday, every Wednesday. I was going to a Christian academy from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. So like had a really good, solid like foundation growing up. And super close with my siblings. Like we're all 2 years apart. I'm the middle child. So like my sister was obviously like 2 years older than me. My brother's 2 years younger. So we were just all like three best friends all the time, like super close, like loving parents, just like a really good, solid foundation. And I always knew that like we struggled financially. We grew up in a trailer park, like, but there was just no shame in that. It was just like we played with all the fun like trailer park kids, like everybody. It was like kind of crazy to see like the different dynamics of the people in the trailer park too, and like kind of the stereotypes that people placed on them. Like I kind of like looking back, like I'm so glad that like our family was different still living in that environment, if that makes sense. Definitely not throwing shade on anybody living in a trailer park, because like you got to do what you got to do, you know. But it was just like, that was just my childhood. Like I loved it, but I always knew that we were struggling. And so going to a Christian school with 3 kids is a lot financially. And my parents were actually getting us sponsored for a few years to go by that school because they wanted us in there. We were good kids and like got really good grades. And so after a while though, they were like, we can't afford to like keep sponsoring all 3 of them. Like either like one of them can stay or the rest have to go to a public school. So my mom and dad basically pulled us out. I was in 5th grade. My sister I was actually going into 6th grade. My sister was going into 9th grade, and then my brother going into 4th grade. So in, what is that, like intermediate school basically was like the year that I went into public school. And like to say that that's like a culture shock, I feel like is an understatement. Going from like everything you do and everything you say is rooted in the word, rooted in Jesus. Like you grew up like every morning it was like the same routine with like prayer, and then going into, you know, what we were studying was based on the Bible. And so going from that literally to my first day of like a public school was just like, why aren't these people pledging allegiance to the Christian flag? Like, this is so weird. Like, why isn't there a Christian flag in the classroom? Like, why are all these kids, you know, we had to wear uniforms. So it's just like these kids are wearing pajamas to school. Some kids are wearing, you know, it was just a very strange culture shock. And I was just like that precious little, just like Bible thumping girl going into this like world of like, whoa. And I remember like this one girl was swearing all the time, and like I was telling her, I said, I'm sorry I can't be your friend, like you're swearing too much. Like I was really like, I had a good solid foundation. I was like not afraid to stand up for like the truth. And I'll always remember that moment. It was so funny. Like I dissed her on the playground because I'm like, I cannot be with you. Like you, that is crazy that you talk that way. And then like it literally only took 2 months of being introduced to that like culture and like that shock to basically settle in as normalcy, and also blend with it and just allow the enemy to just do what he does. And like, well, that's okay if you say this word a little bit, you swear this, you know, like it just became a way of life now. It's just like, I go to a public school, they talk about smoking weed and drinking, which is crazy in 6th grade that I was 12 when people were talking about having sex and weed and smoking and all this stuff. And it's just like, I didn't even know what any of that was just 5 months ago. Like, that's crazy. But it all just kind of became normalized, you know, like having boyfriends, but like it's not really your boyfriend. It's like when you tell people that you have a crush on that person, you go in the hallway and literally don't even talk to them, you know, like, or like when you're holding hands. Yeah. When you're like holding hands in the hallway, like that's how you knew they were dating. Like, yeah. So like my parents started, like when we went into this school, they like laid a bunch of foundations for us and like let us know like the way of life is going to be different, like than what we've used to. Like, you guys are still like held at a higher standard, you know, and basically like you're not allowed to have it was just like X rules, just like you're not allowed to have a boyfriend or girlfriend until you're 16 years old. Like, so like that was like a rule, like can't have relationships, you know. And then like being in that environment where they were doing it all the time and it was just like nothing to them, like dating, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have like a crush and I'll have a boyfriend, whatever. So I started disobeying my parents and like saying I had a boyfriend, even though, you know, you're 6th grade. So that was like when boys were introduced to me, and like the attention and like the attention seeking from boys, and kind of like seeing my friends like gravitate toward that. So I'm like, well, what is that? I like that. Like, I want attention in that way. So going into middle school, which was like 7th and 8th grade for my school district. I know it's different for some school districts, but it was 7th and 8th grade. 7th grade was like where I like started dabbling in wearing makeup and like wanting to kind of like make myself look better, to be like impressive to people. Like, I was still a really good girl, but like I was starting to like follow the world and like saying I'm a Christian, you know, but also like doing the things like dating behind your parents' back and stuff. And like, I just kind of, it just became like completely enveloped me in like the world of public school. That was like 7th grade. Like, I was in it. And then 8th grade was my detrimental year. Like, that was when basically everything kind of just came crashing down, like as far as like my identity and like the things that I did. So when I was in 8th grade, I kind of had realized that we moved schools. When I was in 6th grade, we obviously moved houses, so to be closer to the school. So in this neighborhood that I lived in, there was this neighbor kid that I just would always call him the neighbor guy, that I thought was super cute, like when we would drive by. And I had a crush on him, and it was like, oh, neighbor boy's outside. Like, my family would make jokes about it and stuff, and like didn't think anything of it. Then like, oh, that's a cute guy, you know. And in 8th grade, I actually like met him at a high school football game, and like instantly like kind of clicked, hit it off. He was interested, which was weird because I was 14 and he was 16, and like a 16-year-old in a public school only has like one thing on his mind, you know. And so like I was telling my parents like, oh, that neighbor guy, like I know him, like I talked to him, like blah blah. And so my parents were fine with me having like a friendship with him, you know, like from a distance. Like, all of us kids can go hang out with him and his siblings, like it's a neighbor thing. Like, but then things started getting more like, no, like I like him, he likes me, like, you know, what is this and stuff. And so he would come to church with us still. Like, we still went to church and whatnot. He was going through some things with his family. They were on like the brink of a divorce. And like my mom was kind of like a counselor at our church, and she like invited him in and basically had like counseling one-on-one sessions with him, like to kind of just like keep him rooted in the word and like just kind of be a light to them. And all the while, they had no idea that like, even though they told me I wasn't allowed to date him, like we basically were. It was my 14th birthday actually that like I snuck out for the first time. I had a friend sleep over, and like I made her come with me like outside. We would meet up outside and like get together, and then like obviously like that was the first day where we actually like exchanged like how we felt about one another. And then like our first like kiss together, and like sin is never satisfied. So it just kept getting like, the next time we would hang out, it was like one step further, and then it was getting cold outside. So it was like, instead of us hanging outside, like, why don't you come inside my house? And so like one thing after another was just like the enemy coming in, killing, stealing, and destroying. And I ended up losing my virginity at the age of 14. He promised me, you know, like, because I told him, I'm like, that's not right, that like, you know, we're having sex before marriage, like we shouldn't be doing this, like God doesn't want that. But he was like always finding like almost like a loophole, like, well, we don't have to do it this way means like it's sex, but if we do it this way, like, you know, just like almost making like me feel comfortable to sin. And like saying, well, I'm going to be with you forever, I'm going to marry you, just making me, you know, saying all the right things basically to like make me comfortable with just getting sucked in further. And so we were sneaking out on like a regular nightly basis, basically at this point, like just doing God knows what in the middle of the night. I was at his house, he was at my house. Well, the last time, that probably lasted for like a good solid 6 months before we like ended up getting caught. And I had snuck out of my house to go to his house, and usually we like set an alarm to like, I got to go back before like my dad or my mom would wake up. And his phone died, so the alarm obviously didn't go off, and like we were sleeping. So I woke up to the sound of my mother in his home. She knew exactly where I was because she knew that like I had interest in him, and like, you know, I hadn't bothered them anymore about it because I was doing it on my own. So my mom knew exactly where I was. She came storming up inside. I literally remember it like it's like clear as day, just like this moment of like, oh my gosh, my life is over. Like my mom came inside his room, grabbed me by my ear, pulling me through his house, like screaming at the parents, like, I can't believe you how do you keep your house, like, how do you not know who's coming in your house? Like, you know, just freaking out, you know, being a big mama bear. So I am just like mortified being dragged through his house, like shoved into the car. Like she drives me back to the house and I'm just like filled with like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen to me? Like I am going to be absolutely in like the deepest hole, biggest trouble. So my mom sits me down and she's basically asking me, like, did you have sex with him? Like, and I kept denying. I'm like, no, I didn't. I promise. And she was like, basically saying, like, I'm going to go to a doctor and they're going to tell me whether or not what you're saying is true. So, like, you might as well just tell me the truth right now. So I came out and I told her everything. And at first I lied to her and I said that he forced me because I didn't want her to think that I was like that because I was the good girl. I was the Christian, you know, I was raised this way. It was just like I didn't want her to think this way of me. Like it was forced. And so she started freaking out. Like, I'm going to sign orders. Like that's called rape. He shouldn't do that. Like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, no, okay. Like, no, it wasn't like that. Like I actually like consented, but technically it is statutory rape because he was 16 and I was underage. I was 14. So my mom was basically saying like, I'm going to file, I'm still going to do it. Like that's illegal. And like, I was just like filled with, oh my gosh, my life is going to be over if you do that. Everybody in school is going to know I'm not the good girl that I'm portraying myself to be. Like nobody knows this about me. Like you can't do that to me. Like you can't do that to the future that I have. Like what, that's going to ruin his future. Like it was just crazy wild. So my mom basically, like, it's kind of crazy. She basically made a family meeting and arranged for everybody in my family, my dad, my brother, my sister, to come and meet in our living room that day that she found out and tell my family, like, guys, your sister is no longer innocent. I don't know what the purpose of the meeting was supposed to do, and like, I don't fault my mom for doing this because I guess I just don't understand, you know, like why that needed to happen. But I can still remember like the feeling that I was feeling inside my body of just like guilt and shame and anxiety of just like what is going on. Like my dad's face, I've never seen my dad cry out of disappointment at me, and like it was just stuck. Like I couldn't get his face and disappointment out of my mind. Looking at my sister, like her like just confusion and like almost anger at like betraying the family. Like that's my mom. I remember her saying like that he betrayed our trust. She let the devil into her house, talking about him, and like how she regrets that like she allowed any of this, our friendship, to happen. And like it was just a day literally riddled with I just got to the lowest point in my family's eyes. Like, there's no going lower than this, and this is where I'm going to stay. Like, I can't come up from this because they're always going to bring me back down and remember me at this moment. So it was almost just like, it is what it is now. I'll never disappoint them ever again because what I just did was so low. So I guess I'm just going to live this way. And unfortunately, I kept sneaking out. Literally, they put a security system in my house to keep me in, and I would crawl on like all my fours to not put off the motion sensors, and I'd find a door that didn't have a sensor, and I'd sneak out. Like I don't know what it was, but like a thought turns into a stronghold. Like this sin had a strong hold on me and like everything about me. Like it was just like, I need to continue to chase after like this feeling or this rush or whatever it was. I really don't even know what it was. Just holding me to him and whatnot. And it was just crazy. I would sneak out all the time and like I would end up getting caught here and there, you know, but it was like, I'll never get worse punishment than the first time, like feeling worse about myself than the first time. So like it was like, I got caught again, darn it, you know, like got to be better this time. And so it went on for about 2 years that like we were still sneaking around, like having relationships. So when I was a sophomore in high school. He was, oh wait, no, I was a freshman in high school and he was a junior. So maybe not 2 years that it was probably, it just felt like forever because, I'd sneak out and then I'd get caught, sneak out, get caught, like text him, get caught. Like it was just this vicious cycle of just like losing my identity in him, and whatever he could give me was better than anything else I needed. So I had found out that he was going to prom. Obviously he couldn't take me because we were even supposed to be talking to one another. And my sister saw on Facebook a girl in a picture that was he was tagged in going to prom. And she went to her Facebook page and like my whole world came crashing down. Like it was this girl who lived in another state, and it said that they had been in a relationship for 2 years, longer than what we had been. I had been seeing him. I'd been sneaking out, risking everything for this boy.
Oh no.
And so my sister sends this girl all these love letters that he had written me that like my mom kept from when she caught everything. And basically ruined their whole prom night. She like forced him to take her home. Like just absolutely, her and I developed like a trauma bonding of like, oh my gosh, like we had both been dating this guy. He literally, it was crazy. He wanted me for like what I could give him because I was right there. But like he needed her for like the actual like love relationship part. Like it was like him having the best of both worlds just at his fingertips, just being like just a player. And I had no idea. I thought I was going to marry this guy. I thought that when I turned 16, like I was able to date. My parents couldn't have a say in it. They told me I could have a boyfriend. Like he's going to be the one. He'll be waiting for me. Like just put all these like this just false sense of reality out there. And it just came crashing down and crumbling down. It was just awful. And like I just remember just feeling like the pit in my stomach, like that I should have just listened to my mom, should have listened to my parents. Like, wow, this is insane. Like I just got played. Like, is this what love is? Like is this what I deserve? Did I deserve this because I lost my virginity when I shouldn't have, because I disobeyed my parents? Like, I guess this is like basically what I deserve. Like, I don't deserve anything better than that. Like, it is what it is. And his mom, actually, since they had been dating, him and that girl had been dating for 2 whole years. His mom knew her. She would come into Michigan. He would go out to her state like all the time. And without me knowing, it was crazy. It just like completely wrecked me. But his mom actually came over the day after all of that went down at the prom and like banged on my door. And my mom and I were the only ones home. So my mom answered the door and she said like, "Where's your daughter? Where's your whore of a daughter?" And my mom was like, "Don't, like, excuse me, like, what are you talking about? Like, blah, blah, blah." And like, I was like, what is all this commotion? I came out and she comes into the house and is like pointing at me, like telling me that like, I'm the dirt under the rug. I'm the reason why I'll never measure up to anything. Like, that girl is the trophy on top and you are just garbage. Like, just speaking all of these terrible, nasty lies at me. And I'm like, she's right. Like, I ruined their relationship, basically. Like, my sister sent all these pictures, even though it was like, it was his problem. He did that. He brought that upon himself. I was like, I just ruined his relationship with that girl. Like, oh my gosh, she's right. I am garbage. I am a piece of crap. I am dirt. Like, wow, you know? And it's like, what? Like, where do you even get that? Where did I even like connect that dot? And so that was just like a huge like turning point for me. It was just, that was a lot that she just threw at me. I was literally a freshman in high school, you know, like, calm down, ma'am. But that was wild. That was wild. But then, we stopped kind of communicating. It was just like, that was just it, like, done and over. Like, you're kind of garbage. Like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not going to stoop low like that anymore, you know. But I ended up moving on and just continuing to date, not even like dating, but just having sex with people in high school. I think I was a sophomore when I started actually like dating again. And I found out that like I was placing my identity so much in what I thought I had to offer guys, versus who I was. It was like, you just want my body. So like, that's all I have. So here, so like whatever, just completely deadened to what sex actually means and like how valuable it is, and like what God created it for. Like it was completely out the window. Didn't disassociate it from my brain. Relationships were like, no, people cheat on you because you're not putting out enough. People cheat on you because, there's somebody prettier. Like, I get it, go ahead. Like, it was just such a false reality of what dating and a relationship should be. And like, I was just stuck in this vicious cycle of like, I deserved this. Like, this is just, I've gotten lower. Like, I don't think I could get any lower, but like, I'm going to keep trying. And so my parents ended up just arguing, having a lot of arguments. And basically, I don't think that it was me that split up my parents. There's obviously many reasons for a divorce, and like their marriage was always kind of rocky. Like, we could always see the arguments and stuff. But when I started sneaking out and doing all those things is when it kind of like pushed them further into fighting all the time and arguing, having no idea how to control me, no idea what to do with me. And so when they had finally said that they were getting a divorce, like, it's my fault. Like, I ruined the first relationship I ever had. I ruined my parents' relationship. I'm just basically having sex with these random people because like that it is what it is. Like, my life was just, it felt like meaningless at the time. Like, there was nothing else to like, that I felt like I deserved to live for. And so I remember a couple nights after they had announced that they were going to end up getting a divorce, I thought about killing myself. And I saw the pillow in my room, and the thought came into my mind, like, just breathe into the pillow until you don't breathe anymore. And so I went and I laid down, bawling, crying, because like, no kid ever wants to think of their parents getting a divorce. Like, divorce ruins everything. Like, I am fully just like, obviously, like, God doesn't want divorce, but I am just like, the product of a divorce is just chaos. And like, it's just not, I just feel so bad for anybody who's ever had to go through a divorce, because it just ruins people. But so I basically buried my face into this pillow, bawling, crying, and I just started breathing like deep in and out, just my face in the pillow. And all I was thinking was like, this is it. Like, there's no point. So I just kept doing that. And I don't remember anything other than waking up the next day in the same clothes. Like, I hadn't dressed to go to bed. I just like was still in my clothes from the day before. And I just woke up feeling like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just tried to do that. Like, I must have like passed out, not realizing that, maybe I moved my face or something to where like I didn't die. But I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never doing that again. That's insane. So I was like, that's crazy. Like, even though life looks bad right now, like, that's not an option. I'm never going to do that again. That was really stupid. Like, thank you, Jesus, for keeping me alive. And so my mom was basically like seeing the hurt and like the turmoil that the divorce had on me, and told me like, I want to get you into therapy. Like, she's going to help you like get over all of the trauma from your past, but also what's going on right now between me and your dad. Like, it'll be good. So I went to the therapist. I was super close-minded because I just didn't feel like sharing with more people like what's going on. Like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, it's fine. I just buried it. And so when I finally like let it out about everything in my life, like, I had told her, I lost my virginity at 14. Like, just kind of talked to her about that whole sneaking out experience and like that time. Her response to me was, wow, that's a little slutty.
That is crazy.
I was like, this is a Christian therapist calling me a slut. Like, girl, I know, but like, calm down. Like, you didn't have to tell me that. Like, that's how I felt. I was like, I know that, but like, why did you just have to say that? But like, so I just identified with that so heavy. Like, yeah, okay, she just told me that, I'm a disappointment in my family's eyes. Like, so it just like pushed me even further and deeper. And so when I graduated high school, that summer between high school graduation and my first semester of college was just like disastrous. I all throughout high school, everybody, I'm a shorter girl. I'm 5'1". I've always been like the runt of my family. And in high school, God actually just revealed this to me like a couple months ago, that I had this false identity, but I identified so heavily in like being the good girl, because like I would hide everything that I would do, being the smart girl. I was so smart. So like I was a straight A student, like, you know, like that's what I was like. I needed attention anywhere I could get it. And if it was from my teachers, it's good. I'm like the star student, you know. Identified when people called me a nerd. Absolutely. Like if that's the attention I'm getting, sure. And everyone would always call me, you're so tiny, you're so tiny. So it brought on this like almost like self-conscious eating disorder, like not to the point where I never like made myself throw up. I never like, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't say like I starved myself, but I was like, I have to stay tiny or else like people won't like me, or I have to stay this size, or this size on the scale, this number is too big. I need to stay under this number in order to be small still and to be considered tiny and cute. And like, that's what I identified with, was just like, I put my whole identity in like what I could do in my own strength, and like just ran with it. And I'm like, I loved and ate up every time someone would call me tiny or cute or little. I'm like, yes, like absolutely. Like it was crazy. And I literally wouldn't eat sometimes because I'm like, okay, no, I need to like still stay tiny. Like this is the line that I draw, because I just weighed myself. And it was just an unhealthy habit with food. And like, I just realized that this developed in high school. And like, I think like a couple months ago, God really brought it to light of like, that's not healthy. Like, I want you whole. Like, you putting your identity in a number, or you thinking that you're worthy because you're this size, that's not who I say you are. Like, that's not right. And it was just crazy, that whole like full circle. But that's just one of the things that God's been just revealing to me like crazy lately. But so like all throughout high school, that's what I identified myself in. So I started going clubbing after, when you're 18 and up, there's like this club called Electricity in Pontiac.
Classic.
I know. I'm like, I don't know. You probably heard of it. Yes.
Yeah.
So I started going all the time with my close friend, and we were just like, again, the attention, the clothes we wore, like what we were doing, like underage drinking, getting into drugs, like just doing all of that, just that awful sin, and getting stuck in that cycle of like, oh, Friday night we're gonna do this. It was literally like Friday, Saturday, Sunday night we were going to Electricity, because it was like girls were free before this time. So like we would go in and like just loved the attention of the guys there. We would wear things to like, show off our small, cute bodies. Like just loved that. People would like brush by us and literally like grope us basically. And like, we liked that. We're like, yeah, like that means that we're hot. That means this, and it's like, I was just so far one track mind of just like, all I am is a body to a man. And like, that's all I need to give him for him to show me attention. I'm in. And like that, it's so sad. And so one of the women who was at the club offered me a job to work at the club. And I was like, I mean, sure, like whatever. She's like, it's just like being a shot girl. You just go around, with shots and you sell them to people, whatever. And the money I was making doing that, like I had worked for minimum wage jobs up until then. And so this type of money, I was just like, oh my gosh, these people are throwing dollars, throwing money at me. Like, this is insane. This is crazy money to me, because like I'd only been making like $200, $300 paychecks every week, and it's like, I just made $800 in a night. This is wild. Like what? And, a woman saw me working as a shot girl, and she told me that she owns a strip club. and she told me that she'd pay for me to get my stripper's license, and she would offer me the job. She's like, it's yours. Like, your body is exactly what we're looking for. So again, just affirming what I already knew in my head was that like my body was who I was. And so she offered me a job, basically like let me think on it. Like, she was telling me that there's like these parties that she wanted me and my friend to come to called like the Underground, like all this stuff of just like that lifestyle. And like, I was seriously contemplating it. I'm like, that she was saying how like the money I'm making here is literally nothing compared to what I would make on a pole, like telling me like, you want to get into dancing, like you should come work at this club. And so I was like contemplating it, thinking about it. Like, I was just like, why not? And then I met a guy in college, and it's so crazy. Like, when I met him, I knew I should stay away from him. There was something in my heart and in my brain that like literally was like, this guy's no good, walk away. And I was like, bet. So I pursued, and with no caution, I just was full send, like, oh, he's not good, me either. Like, this will be good for me. And so I ended up dating him. And while I was dating him, I was telling him like the opportunity that I might be a stripper, like go to strip clubs and stuff. And he was like, absolutely not. I think that's disgusting. And so I was like, oh, like, well, I'm a shot girl now. Like, what do you think about that? And he's like, no, I don't really like that either. Like, if you're going to be mine, then your body belongs to me, like nobody else. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's like he got it right, but
he got it almost right.
So close, exactly. But
so far. And so I'm like, oh, this guy really cares about me. He doesn't want me working as a shot girl, so he can have me all like just this false yes. So anyway, quit the job, which like that was one good, coming out of that relationship, but quit that job and was just like absolutely head over heels for this guy, like in a way I'd never been, because like I had just been dating and like having sex with people that like I knew it was going to turn into a relationship. And like when I met this guy, I'm like, no, this one's different. It's not just like for my body, but it absolutely was just for my body. Like in his eyes, like the things that like he introduced to me sexually were things that I didn't even know about, things that were just like so much more like evil feeling when you're having sex. Like I can't even explain it, but it was just something that I was just, okay, like, I mean, if I say no, what's going to happen? Like, I don't want to not do what he says or not play along or not, continue down this road because I like him. I want to be with him. And so just one thing led to another, and I ended up missing a period. And so I took a pregnancy test, and it came back positive. And at the time, I was on a dance team. I was on a collegiate pom team. And I literally was like, in my head, I'm like, okay, at this, we had not a recital, but a competition the weekend that I found out that I was pregnant. And I was like, in my head, like, I just need to kick so high and like just really like exercise so much that like it'll just like it's not a good hospitable environment basically to like have it, So I'm like, and then maybe when I come back, I'll take another test and it'll just be like almost like a miscarriage, So like that was my thought process. And he was just like, yeah, like just really go all out, like just on the same board with just like, absolutely not, we cannot have this baby. And so came back from the competition, took the test, like positive. And so it was just like at this time, we both were like, oh my gosh, I was 19 at the time. He was 20, just gotten fired from working at McDonald's.
Great.
Winner.
Yeah.
Cherry on top.
So I'm like, I moved in with him. He had his own apartment. He was sharing an apartment with a roommate. I moved in with them. Like, I didn't live at home anymore. My dad was the only one at home. My mom moved away when the divorce happened, so she has her own place. Like, but I didn't even have a relationship with my parents after I had started dating this boy because I knew he was bad for me, and I knew that they would try to tell me, like, run away. I didn't want them to tell me that because I already knew it, but I was going to pursue it because I knew it was bad. Just the bolts were loose. But so we're like contemplating, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, I worked at a part-time job as a cashier. Like, I wasn't making money to financially sustain. He wasn't making money at all. He was behind on rent because he lost his job. Like, it was just like, this is crazy. And I wasn't close with my family anymore, but I knew deep down, like, the roots I came from was like at this crossroad, you either choose life and death, like, because, like, as far as like Christ or the enemy, like, I was just so riddled with my past and growing up and like what I had already, like what God had planted in me at such a young age and the foundation I had. It was just like, number one, I can't tell my parents that I'm pregnant because like I'm not even supposed to be having sex before marriage. Like, they would, the way that they reacted with me having sex before marriage, like I can't even imagine like the hate that I'll get or like the disappointment and shame. Like, I can't go through that again. So like, I'm not going to tell them anything. And then his mom he wasn't raised with any sort of Christian background or Christian values. He was actually an atheist. And his mom, that's the person that we sought out for advice. Basically, it was like, because we were so close with her, we would drink with her. And like, it was just that, like, she was the fun mom, you know, that she always would have the party over at her house. You could stay the night. She'll pick you up if you're drunk. Like, we were underage. Like, she was just like that. So we sought out her advice. Like, we said, hey, I'm pregnant. Like, what do we do? Basically, like, the fact that we were even contemplating having an abortion, like, that was just like, to me, I never thought that I would be put in that situation. And then she had said that she had gotten one before and basically said like it ruined her relationship with the person she was with at the time. And she's like, either you go through with this and it completely ruins you guys, or it brings you stronger together as a couple. And so him and I were like, well, it'll probably bring us stronger. So like, that's the thought process, not the fact that that's literally a life. Like, not the fact that like, this is a blessing and like to continue to pursue it and like try to turn our lives around. But the fact that like, well, maybe you and I will come together stronger because we went through trauma together. So we ended up, I think it was, let me think, like 8.5 weeks. And we went to the clinic. They singled me out into a room to ask me basically if I was there against my own will, because I guess that's like a thing that women are forced to go and have that done if like the man is like, you know, forcing them because they don't want the baby or something. So she was asking me some very difficult questions to answer when you're in just such a vulnerable state of like trying to come in agreement with what you're even doing. It's just kind of like, I don't want to be asked any other question other than like, are you ready? Basically, like yes or no. And so she was just trying to poke and pry at my relationship, and I started crying, and she's like, why are you crying? And I'm like, well, I'm a Christian. And she just looked at me with like, I remember the way she looked at me. It was just like, no, you're not. Because it's like, you wouldn't be in the situation if you were. Like condemnation, filled with condemnation. And so I started backpedaling. And I'm like, well, I was raised in a Christian home. Like, I just feel like this is wrong. And she's like, do you feel like it's wrong to do, or like a wrong for this moment? Like, if you keep having the baby, like, do you think that that's going to be better? And I'm like, well, no, because she's like, I mean, you're already pregnant. So like, that's the sin, basically, is what she was saying. Like, is it wrong that you're going through the abortion, or are you feeling bad because you're pregnant? Like, basically a sin is a sin. She was trying to like, just get it done. And so I'm like, I mean, you're right, I am pregnant. So like, I guess the next step would just to not be. And like, that was the most excruciating, like physically painful, but also like emotionally wrecked I've ever been in my life when I went through with that. like it's just crazy, like the mental load that it was just so heavy. And every time I'd have a period after that, even now, it's almost like a PTSD of like those cramps and those pains, like when it was happening. And around the same time every year, I get so emotional because it's like it just keeps getting brought up that like I did that, and there was so much shame behind it, and I was so riddled with like, I can't believe I did that when it was over with, like. But I was like, you know what? It's going to make me and my boyfriend at the time stronger. We're going to be stronger together. And like maybe sometime later down the road, like we'll have kids or something. And like this is just like a bump in the road, basically. And a couple months after that had happened, he straight up told me, like, I can't look at you the same. I just feel like I can't get over the fact that we did that. Like, I'm not even like sexually attracted to you anymore because you did that. And it almost felt like it was just back, like, you did that on your own. Like, I can't believe you did that. Just more shame from the one person that I literally only had to cling on to this entire time. And it was so heartbroken. Like, I was heartbroken. Like, we ended up moving back in with his mom at the time. And, he went on a vacation, and on the vacation called me and said, when I get back, I want you to be out of my mom's house. Like, I can't be with you anymore. And like, so nobody knew anything about it. I didn't tell anybody that I had gotten an abortion. I had to quit my job because they told me it was such a long downtime that like I wouldn't be able to just take off those days without telling people why, like what I was doing. So I had to quit my job in order to even get that procedure. And, so it was just like I had nothing. I didn't have a place to go other than back in my dad's house, but like I'm just going to start all over. And so I just ended up doing the same thing I only knew, which found me attention and love from other people, was to just continue to keep sleeping around. And you know what? This is what I deserve. I am a piece of garbage. I literally am a murderer. I just kept telling myself those things, thinking about that, like, it is what it is. This is who I am. And like, I'm never going to get any better. So I just fell deeper into a spiral of man after man. And I ended up meeting my husband at the time where I like swore off men. I dated this guy before my husband, and like, I self-sabotaged the relationship because I was like, you know what, like it's to the point where like, I know I'm not going to be with this guy forever. So like, I'm just going to separate. Like, I don't deserve a guy. I don't deserve it. Like, I'm just done. This is too much. I've had too much. I've been vulnerable too much. Like, I can't do it anymore. So I came to this point where it was just done. Dating is off the table. I was like, am I supposed to be with a woman? Like, what is going on? Like, I was just so lost in everything about myself and about my identity of just like, I don't deserve anything. So like, I'm just not going to look for it. I'm not going to search for it. I'm going to sit back and just whatever. And so I ended up getting this job where I met my husband at. And the first night, he was so nice to me. Like, just the sweetest guy who, not even to me, just me, like, he was just so helpful. It was a restaurant job. So he was the bartender and I was a server. And like, it was a super hectic, like crazy opening day that we just had for the restaurant. And like, he was saying like, I said, oh my gosh, like, I need a drink after this shift. Like, this is crazy. And he was like, yeah, like, we should go grab a drink. And so we went and we grabbed a drink, and literally I was like, this guy is way too nice. He's showing me way too much attention. I know he's interested in me, because I was at the point where it was like, obviously I was still thinking about like, you know, what I had to offer in like my body. And like, I thought I was just like top notch. And so I'm like, obviously he's interested. Like, I'm going to cut him off immediately. Like, so I just word vomited my whole life on him. Everything. Told him from start to finish. Lost my virginity at 14. Got an abortion. Was just stuck in the cycle of sex, drugs, alcohol. Like, just told him all of it right at the rip. And he was just, like, sitting there listening and, like, intently, like, wow, like, you've been through so much. And then he related to what I said because he had gone through something similar. Not so much with the abortion, but just, like, being stuck in the sexual sin and being stuck in, like, depression, anxiety, drinking, drugs, like, all of that stuff. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, I literally just tried to cut this guy off by just pushing him so far away. Like, this is weird. Like, he actually likes me. So I'm like, okay, like, I guess that's different than most guys. Most guys are like, I don't even want, stop talking, like, just come back with me to my house. Like, and this guy was so different. It was crazy. And so he took me on a date, and literally on the way home from the first date, I called my mom, cried to her, and I told her, Mom, my mom would always tell us, like, she said, oh, I'm like drawing a blank. What did she say? About boys. Oh my gosh, I just had it. She would say it all the time. It's literally what I told her. I know. She would say, she always said the decisions you make today determine your destination. She would say that one a lot. She would say, if you think this is God's best for you, just wait. That's what she would always say. Like, when we were heartbroken from, like, a boyfriend or something, she'd always say that. And we'd be like, shut up. Like, that was God's best, okay? And I literally called her up. I cried because after that whole, I forgot to go back to, like, redeeming my mom and I's relationship. But after I had broken up with that guy who I'd gotten the abortion with and whatnot, like, I basically, like, told my mom that had happened. She basically was just like, you know what? Like, she sat with me in a way that I did not expect her to because of how she reacted to when I lost my virginity. Like, I thought she was going to just shame and guilt, just like the past. And it was just like she felt so bad that she wasn't the loving, nurturing mother, and, like, that I was comfortable enough to go to her. Like, it was almost like she took the blame for me doing that. And it was crazy. And, like, it really wrecked our relationship for the better. Like, my mom's my best friend right now. Like, I tell her literally everything. So, like, I told her when I had met Jordan, my husband, that I was going on a date with this guy, and, like, he's super nice. Like, it's really weird. Like, she's like, just give him a chance. Like, you know, you never know. And I called her crying, telling her, Mom, I found God's best. And she was like, what? And I'm like, this is the reason why I went through everything I went through. I just know it's going to be okay. And, like, I knew from the first date that he was the one that I was going to marry. And it's crazy because he had the exact same story, but, like, he was calling his buddy, telling him, like, dude, I'm going to marry that girl. So it's just crazy. Like, when they say, you know, you'll know when you know, like, I believe that.
It's true.
It's
so
crazy.
At this point, when you first started dating him, like,
yeah,
where was your relationship with God? Like, you're talking about him, but, like, did you fully come back?
Exactly. Yeah. So I obviously, like, always had that rooted, like, in my mind, like, throughout everything I did. It was always on the back of my mind, like, I should be doing this, like, you're a Christian, you know, like, I was just trying to, like, Band-Aid things. And so when I had sworn off guys, so the guy I had dated before Jordan, his whole family was very, I don't like using the term religious, but, like, I don't also, like, they were a Christian family. They didn't go to church or anything very often, so, like, that's kind of, like, the religious, like, term, I guess, like, that they believed in God. Yes,
Christian.
Yes, yeah. They believed in God, but, like, obviously, like, one foot in, one foot out, like, you know. And so that had kind of brought me back to my roots of, like, you know, this is a good guy, good family, you know. But I was still, like, in my own strength with all of it and just, like, self-sabotage that whole thing. And it was just, that's another testimony for another time. But so when I had met Jordan, I had, like, just started getting back into like doing like the cutesy devotional things like every so often. I was still drinking and partying, going out, but like I didn't really go to church on Sunday, but I would still kind of like, oh, I like this like podcast, like I'm going to listen to it. And it's almost like a feel good Christianity, not like biblical Bible based, like being a Christian, walking it out. It was just like a kind of like new age Christian, where it's like they're kind of the same things with new age, and like, one is just more your own manifestation and stuff, and the other is like the manifestations of the Spirit, like in through you and whatnot and stuff. And so it was just kind of like this blurred line of like coming back to my roots. And then he had told me that he grew up Christian, and so it was like, oh, like, okay, like I'm gonna be this good girl, I'm gonna be that Christian that I actually said I was, because I had spent so long like just in my guilt and shame from the abortion and whatnot. And like God actually just freed me from that guilt and shame. About 3 months ago, I was sitting in a women's group at church, and I hadn't even thought about it for so long. It was just like out of sight, out of mind. Like I thought I was good. I'm redeemed. I'm rescued. I'm restored. Like forgiven. All of it. And then God just brought up like in my mind, you need to deal, like immediately it was just like, you need to deal with this abortion right now. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was still a thing in me. And so I had gone up to ask for prayer, and they prayed over my womb. They prayed blessings into me and just spoke life into me. And it was just like this weight was lifted. Like I had sworn off kids for so long because I didn't feel worthy to be a mother. I used to say like, I hate kids. Oh my gosh, like I'm a server. If I get kids at the table, like I don't want them. Like absolutely not. Can't stand children. Like, no, I'm not babysitting. I'm not doing any of that. Like not having kids, because I knew that like deep down I wanted them, but like I'm not worthy of it because I just gave up my chance of having a kid. And so I've just recently had to like repent and rebuke all of that from the past of me just saying that and speaking that over my life and whatnot. And so them praying over my womb and like all of this happening was just like God's redemption. It's just crazy. And he brought this family into my life back in 2020. This little girl was 4 years old, and I had the opportunity to be her nanny. And so it was during the time where I was like, I don't want kids. Like, no, I'm good. But like, I could use the extra money. So I took the job, and this family is the biggest blessing in my entire life, like more ways than they even understand. This little girl she's 8 now. She was born in the same year that I had the abortion. She has the same birthmark in the same spot on her ribs that I do. And like, I don't believe in like reincarnation, like, but it's just like God's redemption. It was almost just like when I had that clarity of like letting that shame and guilt go, and that like, God, I am who God says I am. I am a daughter of the Most High King. My past does not define me. He is my source. Like when all of that was lifted, it was just almost like this like clarity and revelation of like that little girl was God's like gift to me to basically like redeem the time. And like I just love her so much. Like it literally makes me cry talking about her, because she's just so cute, and like the bond that we have is it's just so special. And like I'm just so thankful for like the little things that God's doing like in and through my life, and like redeeming all of these things. It's just like he's just so good, and he really just loves his children so much. And it's literally just like the prodigal son. Like he is waiting open arms for you to just run back home. And like I am so, I can't even describe like the flip of who I was even a year ago to who I am now. And it's only by the grace of God. I'm almost 1 year sober, completely sober from everything. Jordan and I, our marriage, like when we first, because we got married about a year ago, we were still like 1 in, 1 foot out, like drinking, but also like, let's go to church on Sunday. We are both like, no, we're full force. Like we are on fire for what God has for us there. He has greater. He is greater. Like we want to step into the call of anything that he has for us. And like, we both know that like our past doesn't define us, and like God is so much greater, and it's just so amazing to see the redeeming grace of our God. I just can't even describe the gratefulness and gratitude that I have over his hand on my life and like protection. Like there were so many times where I had myself in situations where I could have gotten raped, I could have gotten kidnapped, I could have gotten sex trafficked, like drugged, and it's just like, even though I was going down that path and spiral of sin, like God's protective hand was still like covering me, like looking back with eyes of, with through his lens, like a God lens back on my life. It's like all these little moments. It was like, I was right there and I was right there. I protected you from that. I brought this into your life because I didn't want you to do that, but you did this instead. You know, it's just like his ways are so much higher, and like there's always purpose for the pain. And it's just like, he's just so good. I just love him.
You're preaching now.
I don't know. It's just, I love it. I just love, like, it's so true. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, literally. And it's all for his glory, all of it. Because, like, people who knew me back in those days and they look at me now, it's like, who are you? Like, what even is this person? And I'm like, thank you. That's the best compliment you could have ever given me. Like, I am a daughter of the Most High God, okay? Like, let me tell you.
Or the opposite. Like, for people who know you now, like, I've only met you recently, and you're describing this whole other person. I'm like, who is that?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I love that. I
feel like if Kelly and I have learned anything through listening to these testimonies, it's that, well, maybe I'll speak for myself, not Kelly, but it seems like the devil really likes to overplay his hand, like, so much. But, and like you keep saying, like, you know, the past has no hold on us because God redeems us fully. And then how much more authority do you have to speak into people's lives who have been through the same thing, and like to pray for healing for other people and to minister to people who come from, you know, similar backgrounds too. I just think it's so beautiful how God's redemption just goes like so deep into every single area.
Yes. 100%. I agree. And I'm so thankful for like what else is to come from this, because I just started sharing, you know, like those deeper, darker parts of me that I kept hidden for so long because I still had that guilt and shame. And like, I'm free. I'm like so set free and delivered from any of that. Like, God's going to use every little bit of it for his glory. And I'm excited and I'm honored to like share it here. Like, I'm so thankful.
It's like you're ready to kick the devil in the teeth.
I'm like, I got all my armor. Let's go. That's so funny.
And also, your whole story, what kept coming to mind is the way that it started out almost sounds kind of like a TV show that we've all seen, of like, you know, middle school girl, cute neighbor boy, sneaking out.
That's like, what I like identified with. Yeah.
And like, it's kind of cutesy because like we all know that narrative, but like where things stop is then, you know, once you start spiraling and the depression and like the death that really brings, that, you know, something that seems like, oh, that's just normal part of American culture. You know, that's what you do in middle school and high school. But no, that's sowing seeds of death.
Yes.
It's not cute.
That's so good.
Yeah.
It's not.
So it's good to hear like the whole story of like what I feel like Satan tries to perpetuate as normal does not lead to normalcy.
Right.
At all. Yeah.
I know, it's good. Amen. What the enemy meant for bad, God meant for good. So praise God.
Yeah. I just think like it's kind of amazing. It's almost like a buffet, like listening to your life. There's like so many different issues that came up for you, and so many different like trials, and just this heaviness in so many ways. Like you talked about like suicidal ideation, like eating disorder, you know, sexual sin, but then also like being used, and like, it's just all this stuff. And it just really does seem like you could probably, you would be unsurprised by someone coming to you and telling you anything that they've been involved in, because it just sounds like you've been involved in it all. So I'm just wondering, like, have you have you seen that outworking in your life as well, of just like being able to encourage others who are still in that place that you were? Or if you haven't, like, what would you want to say to people who are still in those seasons of their life, like not having hope and still pursuing all of this death and darkness?
Yeah, so I haven't had like any opportunity to do that. And that's actually been on my heart to like, Lord, put me in situations where you need me to, because like I wasn't able to do that even a year ago because I didn't have the freedom I have today. So like, Lord, put me in that situation. And I think that when I come into that situation, like it truly is like, whether they're a believer or not, like there's so much truth that makes sense, you know, when you speak to people about things and you speak about the death of what can happen when you go down this road. And I think that like that's the power of the testimony, is like, I promise you that what you think this is worth, what you think you're worth, God said God's ways are so much higher, and God says so much higher about you. Like, look at what happened, you know, like this, you can choose what happened. And like, here's the proof, the putting in the proof. Like, my life is literally living proof of what death does and like what sin does. But it's also an even greater proof of like his grace and his redemption. Like, I just feel like I would love to be in a position to be an encouragement to young women, to be able to like tell them of, you know, God's grace and redemption, and to just pull them out of their darkness and into his light, because like I said, like his ways are just so much higher.
Amen.
And you are doing that too. I feel like this is like, what we're seeing is the beginning of God's worked through this with you. He's set you free. And now, just in the matter of a few days, you've been able to share this with a room full of young women. Right. Now with us, who knows who will hear it. And so I can only imagine that like God will continue just to multiply how you're able to share that with others, and the way that it will just set a lot of people free. Even women who don't have like your type of story, like maybe come from a different background, but we all have shame. Like we all can relate to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's so good.
No, like Erica said, it really does feel like, okay, I don't know why for a second there in my mind I had that High School Musical song, like the start of something new.
Stop.
But
that's
it's
amazing.
Like, no, it feels, so that's silly, but it feels like the beginning of something really amazing in your life. And it's so cool that we're hearing this like now, and we're participating in like just you sharing this, like glorifying God through your story now, because who knows where this is going to go. Right. And because we know that, as you said, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, and just all of the ways that your redemption is going to be played out, and all the ways that you will overcome. And then just that promise that every good work the Lord sees to completion. Yeah. And it's just so cool if we're like seeing the beginning of it, we also get to see that all the way through to completion. And it's just like, I think it's just so fun that Erica and I get to hop on the train at the beginning.
I love that.
Because a lot of our stories, it's been more like, I don't know, we've just seen more of everything play out. Yeah. And it's just cool that this is so fresh. And I think anyone will be able to just hear it in your voice and hear it in your passion for the Lord, that like you really are on fire, and this really is something real that's happening in your life. And you just want to tell everybody about it. Yes. And I love that. I just love it so much.
Yes. Well, I'm just so grateful to like have this, like I said, like have this platform to be able to do that, and like this opportunity, like you said, like this was super last minute. And like, even today, the enemy was like, should you say this part? Because like I left it out on Thursday. Like, should you say this part? Well, what about that part? Like, maybe you should keep quiet about that. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I just kept saying that scripture. Like, I overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of my testimony. Like, his words have power. And like, I'm just going to allow him to speak through me, and like, it'll land like anywhere. Anybody, like you said, we all go through guilt and shame and identity crisis. And like, no matter what your testimony is or what you've been through, or like the depths that someone might have gone, you know, it's all the same to God. A sin is a sin, and like there's nothing worse or better than someone's own. It's all trauma. You know, we all go through things in life that like God will end up redeeming, you know, if you give it to him. So I'm just so honored to like be able to speak through it and be on this with you guys. I'm so happy and thankful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're so glad that you were willing to do this, Dani, and thank you so much. We know this is going to encourage so many more people than we can even anticipate right now, and
Amen.
We're just so grateful you were willing to be obedient in that.
Yeah. Amen.
So as we wrap up, if you were just going to summarize briefly, like what did the Lord pick up and send back to hell for you?
Oh, I forgot about this
what
question.
Would it be?
I think pick up and throw back to hell. There's so much, you guys. He put so much. There's so much. I think that it would be who I am. I am who he says I am. And basically, like, the false realities and the false identities I placed on myself, and, like, the expectations I placed on myself when I was living in sin, and, like, the lack of expectations because I was living in sin. I think he honestly sent, I don't even know who I was talking about. You know what I mean? Like, he sent that girl, like, she's dead and gone. Like,
yeah, that girl who was striving to be good.
Yes.
But, like it's only through Jesus that we're made good.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I'm like, I look back at pictures and, like, I'm like, I don't even see who I am right now in me. It's so crazy. Like, it feels like two different people, like you were saying. Like, I truly think he just picked everything up that was wrong inside of me and just said, nope, into the pit. Literally just...
It's gone. Completely.
Gone. And I'm like, okay, I made new.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Yes.
And I love being able to hear, like, in totality, more of your story.
Thank you.
And we'll just say thank you to our listeners for always faithfully tuning in. And we will catch you next time.
Yes, thank you guys.